Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and today I'm coming at you with episode 47. Woo! Ailments as opportunities. This is a subject matter that I really love talking about. It's something that it's a mindset I've been developing over the last handful of years. I would say in the recent year or two, I've really been trying to step into this mindset and this role of looking at the things that ail us as opportunities to grow, to expand, and to gain more self awareness, more knowledge, and more of a solid foundation for healing, not only for ourselves, but for other people. Because when we heal ourselves, we help heal others out there. We help heal the world. And then we add to our arsenal of knowledge so that we can pass on healing antidotes to other people that might be experiencing something that we went through at some time. Now, this is something that I really I've wanted to talk about for a while, and here we are tonight. So decided that this is what I want to do for my solo episode. So thanks for being here to everybody. Shout out Jenny G. Virtual hug right back to you, my lady. What's up, family fungi? Much love to you guys. Thanks for being here. Suzette, howdy. Excited that you're here as well. And we got, who else is here? The great unknown. Good evening to you. And Kabir, what's happening? Yes. Rib out, so no ultimate frisbee tonight. Okay, opportunity. Woo! Well, thanks for coming to hang out with me, even though you can't play frisbee. So, for those of you who follow Mario and I, you might know that we were at Flatoberfest. And if you're watching, excuse me if I look a little extra tired, because we just got in last night from an epic trip to Las Vegas. Oh my gosh. Honestly, it was one of the funnest trips that we've had in a long time. And that's for a lot of reasons. I think that one of the reasons is that going into the trip, we decided our mantra was going to be flexibility. Going with the flow, allowing whatever was going to happen, allowing to be flexible with plans, all those things. And you know what? That transferred over and it really helped and it worked and it was wonderful. And so we had our travel companions with us. Shout out to Debbie, Pedro, and Vanessa. Pedro and Debbie are probably still out on the road right now, but we headed out of town with them. Pedro and Debbie drove down and met us in Vegas. We flew into Vegas, and then we all actually camped out at the Valley of Fire, which was about an hour north of Vegas. And boy, that was seriously the way to go for us anyway. It was like a refuge from being in the hustle bustle of Las Vegas all day long and then being able to just drive a short distance to get to the campground. It was seriously amazing. It felt like home sweet home every time we got back to the campsite, and it was pretty incredible. What's up, Kaylee? Hey, my lady, good to see you. And so Valley of Fire is really special. Maybe people know about it, but if you don't know about it, I highly recommend just doing a Google search of Valley of Fire in Nevada. I was there 10 years ago, actually, and I kind of realized that on our way to Vegas, where I was like, oh shit, there's been it's a decade since I've been here, actually. So there was a lot of full circle moments coming around, and that's been kind of the energy lately anyway. So it's kind of cool. And I had always told Mario about Valley of Fire and how I wanted to go there with him and all those things. And so we got to do that, and it was really cool. And Flatoberfest as an event was really fun. And dude, I mean, the connections we were able to make, pretty freaking sweet. And I'll say too, before we get started, as far as Flatoberfest is concerned, so we all got to hang out. Shout out to the Spiders. We got to hang out at the KOA campsite with a lot of awesome folks after the event on both Saturday and Sunday. And on Sunday, unfortunately, the Baldersons, their truck got stolen right out of the parking garage. And we were there when they found out. And it was one of those moments where, oh shit, you know? So I'm going to put it in the chat for anyone who is interested, but Brian Stavely of Dose of Reality actually started a GoFundMe for them because they're kind of stranded in Vegas right now. And I think they're just trying to figure out what, they contacted the cops and they're putting out a search for the vehicle and things like that. But I dropped that link in the chat here, the GoFundMe, if you guys wanted to, throw them a little bit. Any bit helps, honestly, in situations like that. Everyone knows what it's like to just kind of be like, oh shit, okay, that was pulled under from under our feet. So, yeah, as always, Baldersons are freaking solid. They're really good friends of ours, and we appreciate them a lot. So, any little help for them will help them figure out what their next move is going to be. And yeah, we're already talking about Flatoberfest next year because we feel like if we wouldn't go, we'd have FOMO or something. But it was super awesome. It was so great to connect with people, put faces to names. It was like, when the 3D world and the internet collides kind of feeling. So I got a chance to talk to a handful of people who are, sometimes in our chats, who we've conversed with, and I've never gotten to meet in person. So that was really cool. I actually got to meet Amanda Vollmer and talk to her for a little while, which was really great. That's like a bucket list of mine. So that's really, really cool. And yeah, I mean, all in all, wonderful trip. So much learned, so much gratitude. What's up, Rose? Thanks for being here. Hello to you, my lady, as well. And yeah, so that's what's going on with that. And again, I'm going to be releasing some of the photos from Valley of Fire because it's seriously breathtaking. It's like nothing else I've ever seen. I mean, it's like another planet when you go there, and it's so peaceful. And it's kind of like you're driving through the desert, and then all of a sudden, like the colors start to change in the hills and the sand. The sand because like more gray, white, and then all of a sudden it's like turning to pink, and then it's turning to red, and then before you know it, you're in the Valley of Fire, and it's just like all these red sandstone cliffs and mountains and rock formations, and there's petroglyphs there. And we had a whole day where we got to like explore the park. Well, we had a whole day, to ourselves before the festival. So we were able to do some hiking, and then, went to the strip, walked around to see it. What an overwhelming place. I mean, crazy. It is the city that never sleeps for a reason. And yeah, so it was good. It was all very awesome and great, a really good experience. So shout out to anyone who's listening that was over there. So let's talk about it. Ailments as opportunities. Again, most people who've listened to me in the recent time know that I went through a pretty intense experience with my right ear. Okay. Ear infection, earache, ear ailment, whatever you want to call it. It was a doozy, and it was one that made me take stock of things, stop and reevaluate, stop and look deeper into my own soul and my own shadow, because I find, and this is where the opportunities with ailments come in. I find that when we are in these situations where we're feeling under the weather, something sweeps us off our feet and whatever, that is an opportunity to examine ourselves on a different level. And typically what happens, at least for me, and you can tell me in the chat if you guys have had this experience too, but typically what I find when I'm not feeling well, whether it be a cold or a flu or something more serious, there's always other things that come up with it. So, and typically it's our more shadowy parts, right? It's more the things that are our challenges. And I think that if you use an ailment or an illness in a productive, constructive way, you'll be able to kind of get deeper down into the core reasoning for some of your other hangups that you might have, or some of the things that we all have, that we all have certain challenges. We all have certain insecurities. We all have times where we feel anxious or sad or extra happy or whatever. And I think that though, in the times when our bodies are telling us to slow down, these are some of the times where some of the most profound, divine, and healing things can come through for us that will not only help us to heal whatever it is that's actually going on or causing you symptoms, but maybe perhaps seeing something deeper that could have actually brought on the illness, or could be perpetuating an illness, or could be just a part of you that is actually unwell, but it might be under the surface, if that makes any sense. So that's what I wanted to get into tonight. And I think that there's a lot to be said about this. And I think that the mainstream, I don't think, I know the mainstream propaganda of illness, they don't look at a sickness as opportunity. They're going to tell you, worst case scenario. Oh my God, it's horrible. You've come down with something, or whatever the language is in the Normieville with it. It's always negative. It's always kind of like the illness is bigger than you or something, or that you can't conquer it. And this was one of the biggest takeaways from Amanda Vollmer's discussion that I got, was her and the amount of options that she reminded people that they have when they do have something pop up. And there were people there that have, like, serious ailments, that were asking her questions, like very like seizures, or they had brain trauma or something like that. And the fact that mainstream medicine told them, okay, the only option is this drug. But then to hear her say, oh, that's far from your only option. You could do this, you could do this, and you could do that, and you could also do that. And then if that doesn't work, you could also try this and that and the other thing, before you would ever have to think about taking a pill from a pharmaceutical company at all. And so that was one of the more standout things about her talk. And it was very empowering, and a big reminder that that is how it works. We have options. We're not limited by options when it comes to healing. So, yeah, that's just one of the things that I wanted to definitely mention here. So ailments as opportunities and not threats. And one of the things I wanted to talk about is that how our bodies adapt well to change. So when you don't feel 100%, a lot of times what you want to do is kind of go through like a reset. So what's the first thing that happens when we don't feel good? You usually don't have much of an appetite. So that's obviously your body telling you, okay, we need to scale back here. You need to just like lay off the food for a little while. Most everybody knows that. That's not a secret. But I think that that is your first opportunity. That's the first opportunity that's given to you when you have an ailment, is to like literally scale back, make things simple, and reset. And we talked about this actually throughout our trip with our friends. We were talking about having resets and having just whether that be with food or whatever, but like allowing your body to reset itself. And a lot of times during that reset, you start to feel better. And one of the things too, I'll say, that happened to us during the Flatoberfest trip, and what we found out was that we would have conversations before we got to Flatoberfest, and then the speaker would start speaking. They would be bringing up stuff that we were talking about. It was really interesting. There was a lot of weavy kind of synchronistic stuff that happened throughout the weekend that way. And this was one of them, the reset kind of thing. That was definitely one of the conversations that we talked about, and like how when you make these reset kind of extreme changes, your body responds pretty quickly. And so, as an example, I'll just use myself as an example here with my ear. You know, I think it was like maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, maybe 3 weeks ago, where my ear, it just still was not 100%. And it was starting to hurt again, and whatever. I ended up being like, all right, I'm doing an alkaline diet. I haven't done an alkaline diet in a long time. We used to be vegetarian, and we were vegan for a while. And during that time, we were eating an alkaline based diet. And so it had been a while since I'd done that. So I was like, I'm going to go alkaline. So alkaline is basically an anti-inflammatory diet without any meat, without any dairy, no wheat, no sugar, nothing that inflames the body is basically what's going on. And so what I found is I started doing the alkaline diet, and within only like 3 days of the alkaline diet, my ears started feeling better. And then I was like, all right, I need to just keep doing this. So I continued the alkaline diet, and I started to then feel a lot better. And then I started figuring out that my ear, I actually ended up ultimately figuring out that it was it had turned into a fungal infection, and it was a total fungal thing. And so I started treating it fungally, and then, dude, it cleared up like super quick. And so the combination of treating it like a fungal infection or ailment, whatever you want to call it, and the alkaline diet, it was like, whoa, dude, my healing accelerated in such a huge way. And then I was able to actually then slowly incorporate foods. And then I was really learning what foods were making me and my ear more inflamed. And so that was the other opportunity that came. So now I know these things more clearly, and I got like a reminder of it. So now moving forward, it's like, okay, so those foods that made you inflamed when you weren't feeling well, you probably should just avoid them in general. And if you're gonna have them, have a little bit and don't go overboard and don't make them like a regular thing. Okay. And so that is another opportunity that came. And so these are the small things that we can think about and that we can look to, and that can encourage us to look at our ailments as opportunities. And I think that it's a beautiful thing when we do this, really. So another thing that I can't take credit for this question that I'm about to propose to you all, or just propose to you guys as a way to ask yourself something while you're not feeling well. But my really good friend Regina, she's an excellent person with so much knowledge, and I kind of look at her like a spiritual healer in some way, even though she wouldn't classify herself as that, but she has this way about her. And she one time in a class I took with her said, when you're going through something, all the parts of the body actually correlate to some kind of emotion. So she said the question that she asks herself when she's not feeling well is, what's coming up to be healed? What's up, polymathing? Thank you. Yeah, what's coming up to be healed? Okay. And she said that question and it resonated so deeply with me that it is something I ask myself quite a bit. It's like, even if you just have a backache, what's coming up to be healed? What wants to be noticed and what wants attention? Because sometimes a backache can be obviously from you maybe pulled something, or, it could have been a physical thing, but it's still an opportunity to look at something deeper. And then when you are able to correlate the part of the body with an organ system or an emotion, usually 9 times to 10 times out of 10, it matches up, in my experience anyway. So like the lower back, for example, this is another thing I learned from Regina, is that the lower back is basically connected to like feeling like you're carrying the load, like you're the only one carrying a certain load. And so you feel as though, whether it's subconsciously or it's an actual thing that's going on, you feel as though you're not getting help. You don't have enough help to get the things done that need to be done. So it all falls on you. That typically will land in your lower back region. So there's all sorts of ways to correlate these types of things with the emotional body. And when you then can realize what emotion is connected with the pain, then you can like really take stock of your life, and then ask yourself the questions, is like, okay, so am I feeling like that? Is that how I'm feeling? What's happening in my life that's making me feel that way? Or what's going on inside of me that's making me think that that's the case? Because it also can be a projection. Because I think as humans, or as people who wander this plane, we can easily project things onto other people, onto a situation, and almost like make it seem more than what it is. Okay. That's something that goes on for sure. And this kind of goes along with the opportunity thing, because then you can also take a look at something, and then see where you may be the problem. It might be you that's causing something, or you that's doing it, and it's not somebody or something else. It's actually, more on you. And that's kind of why I love German New Medicine and terrain theory, is because it's more about personal responsibility versus pointing the finger at someone and then going somewhere else to get the help. It's like really tuning into yourself and asking these important questions. And I think that's where, we get a lot of really big beneficial healing that happens. What's up, Liam? Welcome into the healing home on this fabulous Tuesday. All right. So, physical, emotional, and spiritual healing. What does that look like? I think they all are connected in some way, but I also think that on individual levels, we can choose the one that we really want to focus on. And I think that, like, when it's a physical ailment, the emotional and the spiritual side of that ailment will pop up and come together and show us certain things about what's going on. And there's all sorts of things we can do to all sorts of things we can do to tap into these three, and one of them is using plants. And most of you guys have heard me talk about this, I'm sure. But plants, in and of themselves, they can profoundly affect your emotional and spiritual body. Now, I talked about this on Crow 777 radio. If you guys haven't listened to that, we went into this, and plants, the vibration of plants, and then our vibration, and trying to tune into the vibration of a plant. Now, a plant wants to vibe with us. I think that they really want to. They want to get to know us, and they want to show us things. And so, something like a taking a small dose of a tincture could actually be better than taking a big dose of tincture, because I think a lot of times when we're sick or when we're ill or feeling not 100%, the first thing that we might do is to, like, take a big dose of something, thinking that that big dose is just going to, like, take it out. And a lot of times people just, you throw everything at it all at once and then think that there's just going to be this one magic thing in that whole soup that you threw at it that's going to be like, bam, you're healed. Okay. And sometimes that happens. I've had it where you feel like, you're getting a stuffy nose, your sore throat or whatever. And I'll make, apple cider vinegar. I call it my lemon ginger tonic. And I'll make these hot drinks, and you drink like 3 of them, before you go to bed. I've done that before. And then I've woken up in the morning and it's like, bam, I feel great. So I'm not necessarily opposed to doing that. But what I don't really condone is, like, just grabbing everything that you have and having hundreds of supplements and taking a bunch of them and then taking this and taking that all at once. Because what can happen is that you don't realize what thing really helped. Like, what was it within that big old cauldron of what you took? You won't be able to know what it was. You might have like an inkling or an intuitive hit of like, well, I bet it was the garlic. Well, no, maybe it was the golden seal, or actually it could have been the elderberry. But I also took green tea, and I also took some raw honey, and I also threw some ashwagandha in there. And then he would be like, "Well, what helped? I don't know." So the next time that you felt those same sensations, you might not remember, or you might not know, because you just took too much. So I always say start slow, or start with one thing. And that was one of the things I tried to do with my ear. So I did have a handful of things that I used, or instead of saying used, that I consumed while I wasn't feeling well. But what I tried to do was go for a day and do just MMS. Just take MMS. And maybe I took a little golden seal with the MMS. And then I would do that for a day. And then the next day I did DMSO. And then I did DMSO, and then I started some goldenrod. And then I did it like this, and I did some garlic. And so I took it slow, and I did one thing or two things at a time so that I could actually see what was working. And that way I was able to then be able to be like, okay, cool. Well, actually the grapefruit seed extract really helped, and I'm not sure if this is working as well as the grapefruit seed, so now I'm just going to go with the grapefruit seed extract. And that's what I was able to do. And so I think that that's an opportunity. So it's an opportunity to just understand dosage a little bit more for yourself, and understand the things that your body resonates. Because as we've talked about this on Vibrant, on Astro Herbs, not everybody's different. So one herb, maybe golden seal, helped me for my ear. Maybe I would recommend that to somebody else down the road, and the golden seal did nothing. It's all different. It's all different for everybody. But a lot of times, though, there are a handful of herbs that will work. for multiple people, but they're just going to affect them differently because we're all different beings and we all have different emotions and we all look at the world in a different way and we all view ourselves differently too. And so I think that's something that the herbs work well with is they kind of are able to have a way to pick up on our vibrations and pick up on the way that we even like view ourselves in the world and tap into those emotions or those neural pathways in a deep way. And I think that's one of the more profound sides of herbal medicine that is definitely talked about, but I feel like I want to start talking about that more because it's something that I've just over the years have noticed time and time and time again. And to me, it's not it's unignorable at this point for me anyway. And the more people I tell these things to, the more I see people kind of being open to thinking that way and then being able to apply it to their own life and seeing results. So that's awesome. Now, one of the other things that happens, and this goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier of like the shadowy side that might come out when we're sick. You know, our insecurities a lot of times come up, our vulnerabilities come up, things that maybe we haven't 100% dealt with will probably come up when you're not feeling well. And these are deep seated emotions that will come to the surface. And you have a golden opportunity to tap into that because you're not feeling well, you want to rest. And when you rest, you get better. And when you rest, you have time to slow down and you have time to really evaluate yourself and what's going on. And I think that's where this shadowy work, this dark night of the soul kind of thing, that's where that plays into when we have illness that comes up. And because you're kind of raw. You're really raw in those moments when you don't feel very well. And I think that to ignore the other emotions or the other thoughts that come up is just a disservice. And you know what? The suppression of that can actually then I believe that it would actually hinder you to the point where whatever you're suffering from could maybe become chronic because the emotion that's going to come up is actually maybe pointing to something that caused the ailment that you have. And that's where German new medicine comes in really well. Now, with German new medicine, as I've talked about before, when you aren't feeling good, or when you start to feel the pains, or you start to have the lumps or the bumps that form, that is the healing phase. That means that you've already resolved the conflict. But that doesn't mean that you are like over and done with it in terms of acknowledging it. And I think that's the difference is like, yeah, okay, awesome. So I don't feel well. Well, whatever this is attached to emotionally, I should look into that. But I don't look at it like, oh, I don't feel well, so my work here is done. According to German new medicine, work here is done. Wash my hands. Okay, I can just move on. It's like, well, no. It's like, in my opinion, I feel like if you found the conflict that you were having, and then you linked it to German new medicine and what they link that emotional block to, or that trigger, then that would be the opportunity to go in deeper and be like, okay, so, and again, I'm going to use myself as an example because it's just me here today. And if anybody in the chat has any experiences that they've found with this, feel free and throw it up. But so with my ear, I then was able to connect it to the kidneys, which I then connected to fear, because fear is what's connected to the kidneys, on the organ system of the kidneys in Chinese medicine. So then I was able to say, okay, what am I fearful of? And I literally went through like, what am I fearful of? Okay, so you could go into your more superficial fears of like drowning in the ocean, or, I don't know, missing out on something, or you go down to the deeper fears that you might have of not being accepted, not being heard, not being understood. And I'm listing these off because these are the ones that I was dealing with the ear stuff. Just insecurities that were definitely holding me back, that those are the fears that I've had that I've had to and I'm still walking through and dealing with. And by doing this show, I'm conquering these fears. And my ear was also, such a wake up call for me on a lot of levels. And what I was deciding to do was like, even though I didn't feel 100% or my ear was hurting, I was like, no, I still have a show to do. I pushed through. I pushed through that not feeling well. And then, and on the second hand, I pushed through that fear of whatever that might be, of just the fear of not being understood or whatever it is. So I just continued to go. I continued to go, and I chose to not stop. And I think like that for me was an opportunity to just dig deeper into what these fears are and why I was feeling them, and to start to conquer them. And it's not an overnight process, just like recovery isn't an overnight process. Recovery from anything. And you could consider an ailment an addiction. And it's not going to be overnight that you're just like, boom, I'm good, I'm better, okay, forget about that. It's like, no, I mean, these things stick with us, especially when it's an ailment that really was a deep one or really took us out of the game. Those things stick with you, and they are big for a reason, because it's usually also some type of initiation. What's up, Logan? Long time no see. Good to see you here. It's like an initiation. It's an opportunity, as I keep saying, but it's an initiation to like level up. It's a leveling up process. And I swear this whole life that we have is just a series of opportunities to level up. And when we start to look at ailments and illness and sickness as opportunities, I feel like we are going to level up more quickly and and faster, and with more grace. And that is one of the things that my ear situation taught me, was stepping into my grace a little bit more. And just being aware of things. And the other side of the ear was, okay, it might be that I have a fear of not being heard, but how about listening? How are you listening to things? Are you listening deeply? Are you listening too much? Are you not listening enough? Are you missing things? Are there things that go that pass you by, they go over your head, and you're not actually able to hear them fully. I had so many questions for myself almost daily while I was going through this. And it seriously, I mean, it brought me to tears when I talked to Amanda Vollmer, because I told her a little bit about this, and just how profound it was for me to be able to take this journey and also apply some of the things that I've learned from her, particularly with using DMSO, to helping me. And it was just like, oh my God, it was such a huge leveling up. And you sometimes don't know that that's what you're being gifted with. And I see Rose is still here in the chat. And if you guys didn't listen to our episode last week, we totally talked about this, because she had a huge divine healing and she's still feeling great. And she also talked about the shadowy parts of that, right? The moment where everything literally kind of came falling down on her. And it was just like, oh my God, what's happening? Like, what's happening to me? And she was able, though, to step back, though, and see like what may have caused that moment. And then actually that moment had to happen. And I think that's the other thing, is that acknowledging, accepting that it had to be that way, and that it had to happen, and that if it didn't happen, that you wouldn't be in the spot that you're in this moment. Just like how Rose has been feeling great, and she's not experiencing some of the same chronic ailments that she's had for a long time, and she can just revel in the fact that, like, wow, I feel great and this is awesome. And guess what? I'm going to keep going, and I'm not going to stop feeling great. And I think that's the other mindset flip that happens too when you come onto the other side of something. And like I said in the beginning, how I did like basically an elimination diet and just went all alkaline. And then I slowly, very slowly incorporated things that aren't as alkaline. And I was like, whoa, okay. So, the dairy, if it's not raw dairy, you probably should not have it, or have it sparingly, or whatever it is, because I noticed that things like cheeses and dairy. I'm not a huge milk drinker. I'll only drink milk if it's raw, and even then I'm like, okay, it's okay. It's all right. It's a childhood thing though. That's another thing we talked about on our trip. A lot of times our connections to certain foods come from childhood trauma. I used to bless my parents. I love them, but I was one of the children that couldn't leave the table until I finished my plate, or I didn't finish my milk, and I had a hard time drinking milk. And oh, sweet. Rose says 23 days and counting. Yes, I'm so happy for you. That's fucking awesome to hear. Yes, yes, yes. So milk, I'd have to stay at the table until I drank it, and then by the time I drank it, it was warm, and I just was like, oh, and maybe I couldn't do it, and I would have to choke it down, and I would gag, and this and that, and so I do think that I still have some childhood trauma around milk, and that might be literally why I don't drink it or whatever, but that just was one of the things. But it was one of the things that I realized was causing inflammation in the ear. Literally, another thing that I realized was like the headphones I was using. So I had noise canceling headphones that you turn on a switch and then, it cancels out the noise. But what I learned is that those headphones use a frequency to turn off the sound, right? And I wore those headphones actually, and I took them off, and I was like, holy shit, my ears all plugged up. Like, why? And then I'm like, I haven't even eaten yet today, and I only drank herbal tea. I had nothing else. And I'm like, dude, it was the headphones. Another opportunity. So another opportunity to be like, okay, I'm not going to wear those headphones anymore. I'm going to buy some new headphones. I'm borrowing Mario's right now. Shout out, babe. But, it's just like, no, we're not going to use noise canceling headphones, because if that caused my ear to become inflamed, then it's always doing that. Like, it's doing that on a regular basis, even when it's still healing, sorry, I mean, besides when it's healing, it's still inflaming it. So then that means it's inflaming both ears. So then what else is it doing to the tissues that are around my ears? So I had a whole thing with it. So yeah, buyer beware. Exactly. Um, yeah. I'm not sure if you're talking about noise canceling headphones, but buyer beware with noise canceling headphones, because it's a real deal. And I noticed that. And then I was like tripping out, going like, yeah, what's that frequency? What's the frequency doing? That it's able to cancel, ambient noise around you out. It's probably a pretty powerful frequency. What's up, Thunder Chicken? Thunder Chicken is another great person I got to meet this weekend, and that was freaking awesome. And dude, I sent our goods that we purchased from the festival home with Pedro, because we flew, so I didn't want to fly with it. But I cannot wait to try out the vape cartridge. I haven't tried it yet, but his Canalion salve I got and tried, and it's freaking lovely. So you guys, if you haven't checked out Thunder Chicken, check him out, because he had a booth there and everything. It was so great to meet you. Mario and I were stoked. So, okay, back to ailments as opportunities. So, the dread of being sick. Okay, right. Who wants to be quote unquote sick? Nobody. Nobody wants to feel like shit. Nobody wants to not feel 100%. So it's like people dread it. And I think that a lot of the mainstream media propaganda really uses this as an opportunity to get people to take vaccines, to buy shitty medicines, to stock up on Vicks, whatever the hell, the not Vicks Vapor Rub, but NyQuil, that's it. Things like that. You're going to have this in case you don't feel good. And it's all stuff that's horrible for you. Right. And so instead of instead of dreading being ill, again, flipping it and seeing it as an opportunity to grow, seeing it as an opportunity to learn more about yourself and learn about your body. And then again, realize that our bodies are literally built to heal. And that is the other thing. I think also having the mentality about kind of almost like having the mentality about yourself that you're almost like invincible when it comes to like something out from being outwardly like attacking you. Not that you're invincible, but getting away from that mentality that someone or something is going to get you sick, and I'm just more of the thought now that it's already within us. The answers are within us and the ailments are within us, and so when you start to look at it that way, you start to have, I think, maybe more even gratitude for whatever pops up. That's what I've been working on really hard to change my mentality of. And again, my ear helped me do that because it was such a huge thing for me and it lasted so long, and it took me a long time to get over it, and I had to really be diligent about it. And it also helped me with my own self-control and my self-confidence. All these things, these are all opportunities. Again, that's what I'm going to just continue to go back to try and be a voice for people, to allow them to see it like that instead of the opposite where it's like a burden or something. Because then I think if you're in the mentality like that, the ailment might stick around longer and it may become worse. And it may even, like I said, become chronic if you're not actually engaging it. And yeah, so that's the thing. So I'm going to come into the chat because I did mention that if people have anything that they noticed about themselves when they were ill, to throw it up there. So let's see what we got. Okay. Liam says, I can't wear wireless headphones. I get headaches, and the welding set at work interferes with them. Ah, interesting. I instantly knew wireless headphones weren't doing good for me, even for short periods of time. Yeah. And I've heard that too, like the Bluetooth headphones or whatever, where you're using Bluetooth technology, that it's literally like frying our brains or something. Um, yeah, dude, totally. That's it. Yes. Woo! Flatoberfest, baby. Yeah, it was a good one, Lee. And I too wish we had more time as well. Okay. Let's see if anybody else had anything. Jenny G. I remember once long ago buying a bunch of throat lozengers on sale. Then shortly after getting super sick. It's almost like I filled the need to use them. Right. Totally. Yes, yeah, totally. So it's kind of like, also noticed things like if someone was sick around you, then getting paranoid that you're gonna get sick is almost kind of like you're like telling your body you're gonna get sick by thinking that way. Instead, what I would do, and I used to do this before I knew anything about terrain theory, like even back in like high school and stuff. Um, I would tell myself, I'm not going to get sick. I'm not going to get sick. And then I wouldn't get sick. While like my mom and my brother had a cold or something. And I'd be like, wow, okay, I didn't get sick. And at that time, like I said, I'm a teenager. I had no concept of terrain theory or German new medicine or even natural remedies at that point. But I do remember though that being a thing. And I do remember though, my mom, even to this day, she does that and she knows nothing besides the things I try and tell her. But she is definitely just, she trusts her doctor and all that stuff. But the one thing my mom does do is she tells herself, I'm not going to get sick. If someone at work had a cold or whatever and she'd come home, she'd be like, no, but I'm not going to get sick. And she rarely got sick. And she still to this day rarely gets sick. And so I think that a lot of it, just like everything in life, so much of it is mentality. And I think like this is also one of the opportunities, ailments as opportunities to take the opportunity to literally flip our mindset and change the way we look at it. What's up, Cozy Crone? How are you, Andrea? Good to see you. So getting over the dread of it. And like I said, no one wants to be sick, but it's just a part of life. It's like what happens. So instead of dreading it, accepting it and then moving forward is the best freaking way to do it. Just move forward. Just keep going. That is the mantra over here in these parts. Nourishment versus suppression. Totally something that I've talked about before. A lot of us in this community talk about it because it's so important. Obviously, allopathic medicine is going to suppress, holistic medicine is going to allow it to express. So, the nourishment side of it is more of a wise woman tradition concept. And I'm planning on doing a whole episode on the wise woman tradition because it is literally my gateway into herbal medicine. And I really do think that I consider myself more of a wise woman herbalist. And the wise woman tradition is based on nourishment, and it's also based on looking at ailments more like this. And there is so much more of a crossover with the wise woman tradition and terrain theory than anything else. That's what I see, because the wise woman tradition looks at the body and helps you to see yourself as you're quote unquote perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. Like whatever's happening, it's not wrong because nature doesn't make mistakes. And that's a quote that my friend Mark says a lot, who is he's not a German new medicine practitioner, but he's very wise on the subject, and he actually wrote a book about it. And he used that quote, and I was like, "Oh my god, that's so true. Nature doesn't make mistakes. Just like God doesn't make mistakes," or whatever you wanna say. It's like the things that happen for a reason. So you got ill and it wasn't a mistake. It was to create an opportunity for you to grow and to understand and to not only grow, but to like I said in the beginning, to add to your arsenal of knowledge so that you can help yourself, more easily and then help someone else in the future. So the nourishment versus the suppression is very important. And that's where things like chicken noodle soup comes in. It's like there's a reason why that's a classic thing when you're not feeling well, because the bone broth and the fats in the chicken, that's nourishment. And if people, for people who are vegetarians out there, that's cool. I would highly, highly recommend that if you were ill, though, if you're not super staunch, that like bone broth would be one of the first things I would do. But if you aren't wanting to do that, one of the things you'd want to do is to make yourself nettle infusions, comfrey infusions, raspberry leaf infusions, but specifically the comfrey and the nettle when you weren't feeling well, because it's packed with nutrients. It's packed with macronutrients. It's packed with chlorophyll. It's packed with vitamins and minerals that you aren't going to get necessarily from certain foods, but the plants can provide that. So that's what I would recommend someone who is a vegetarian or vegan who doesn't want to have bone broths or something like that when they're sick. That would be like one of your best tickets. And so you're actually nourishing, like looking at it like nourishing the ailment. So nourish that ailment, nourish it enough until it starts to feel better. Like nourish it away almost. And not even away, but you know what I'm saying? Like nourish it. Don't suppress it. And that is like the biggest difference between even like what's called the heroic tradition, which is, so there's three traditions. I'm just going to go through it really quick. There's the wise woman tradition, which is kind of like the OG tradition of healing, in my opinion, like primordial shit right there. And then you have the heroic tradition, which is more like it's more of a naturopathic way of looking at things. So it relies heavily on supplements, relies heavily on detoxing, which detoxing isn't bad. So I'm not saying it's bad, but there's like I feel like there's extremes though. Like some people take it to like an extreme where I think it actually becomes unhealthy, and then it like actually creates like mental and emotional blocks. Honestly, and I could talk about that for a while, but that's just something. So the heroic tradition is more like think of a health food store, think of a supplement store where there's just tons of supplements all over the place, and you're taking supplements, you're punishing yourself, like you're dirty, you're bad, you did something wrong. So now you have to suffer. Now you have to deprive yourself of these things because you're dirty. That's more the heroic tradition. And then we have the scientific tradition on the which is the tradition of healing that is most prevalent today in the mainstream. So that would be allopathic medicine, where you're going to a doctor, they look at you like a number, they look at you like a car, they're gonna tune you up, but they're not tuning anything. They're actually like hindering you. So they're going to look at you like that. They're going to give you a pill. They're going to they're going to tell you to take it. Your symptoms going to go away. And then it's probably most likely going to come back, or it's going to come back down the road as something different, like a chronic disease or something like that, because it was just suppressed. It wasn't actually dealt with at the root. So look for that in the future, because I'm definitely going to do an episode just about the three traditions of healing, because it's really close and near and dear to my heart, and it honestly helps make sense of a lot of the stuff that's going on. And when I've known about these traditions for a long time. As I said, this was my intro to herbalism. Susan Weed is the woman who she brought this into my life, and hope to interview her one day, because I'd love to have an interview with her of just speaking about just the traditions of healing, because she's really great at talking about it. And she's one of the herbalists who kind of like brought the wise woman tradition even into the herbal community, I would say, like the more mainstream herbal community. But aside from that, I wanted to touch on it because it really helps to make sense of things. And Mario and I were talking about these three traditions the other night, and he was like, "Whoa, you know what? It actually lines up with the traditions that he's looking into." So he's been looking at, like, we have the solar tradition, which is the tradition that's happening right now, which he was like, that would align more with the scientific tradition. And then you have the heroic tradition, which is like the lunar tradition. So that would align more with that. And then he's now been on the trip of the stellar or the polar tradition, which is like the wise woman tradition, because it's more of like the original tradition that we're starting to understand is probably the original place of creation. Was the stellar and the polar tradition was like maybe the first more primordial tradition that was around before anything else. And it makes so much sense that the wise woman tradition would be right in there, because we're talking about that star, we're talking about the pole, we're talking about the sacred center, the creation of the universe. How could that not be the thing that is the original tradition? So anyway, again, long winded on that one, but I will have an episode, and maybe, who knows, maybe Mario and I will do a joint episode on it, because he has a lot of opinions on it. And when I first showed him that, it blew his mind a little bit, like, whoa, this makes so much sense. What's up, old world Micmac? Yes, creator doesn't punish or make mistakes. It's true. I truly believe that. The problem I have is not remembering all the things when I'm not feeling well. Yes, that's a very, very common thing. I totally feel that. And I too have that same thing. And sometimes, yeah, it's like I you'll think of something either after the fact and be like, oh, how did I not remember that? Like, I totally know that. I use it all the time or whatever. But I think the more we start looking at ailments as opportunities, the more that it will improve our recall on these things. That's how I feel. That's how I think about it, because when you look at it as an opportunity, you take the moment to like think. And I think when we look at it as a burden or something like we're being punished, our mind goes into like defense mode. Our emotions and our mind go into like more of a defensive place. So then we close off. We like close our own self off. And when we do that, we become forgetful. Everyone knows, like, if you're really anxious or, you're yeah, usually it's anxiety. If you're so anxious, like, you'll forget the simplest things, or then you'll not be paying attention to something. And if you're not paying attention, then you're distracted. So then you're not going to be able to remember like something really important, like, whatever you would turn to if you're not feeling well. So I think like it's that flip again that can help us get into that. But Kabir, I totally relate. And I'm sure most people relate to that too, because that's kind of what I hear a lot of. People will say that, you hear that all over the place, that, God, sometimes I'm ill and I don't know even what to do, or I forget, but it. And that's why I think too, like, encouraging others in our household to start to think of ailments as opportunities will then help them to help us better and themselves better when they don't feel right. Because all it would maybe take is that person to be like, all right, well, this is an opportunity for me to slow down and remember what we did last time, so and so wasn't feeling well. And they'll take that moment instead of panicking and thinking, oh man, they're sick. Oh God, what should I do? And then you go, like I said, you go into like defense mode, or you go into like hyper, it's almost like a fight or flight. And you just like don't, then you end up not doing anything. And sometimes that could be the best thing. Sometimes, like, you fast and you don't do quote unquote anything. You just allow your body to do its natural healing. And sometimes that's what you need to do. But that's a good point, Kabir, because a lot of people go through that. What's up, beautiful Bloom Seeds? Nice to see you in here. I'm so excited to be connecting with you. I'd love to have you on the Healing Home, by the way. We just got on back home, and I'm starting to now think about November shows. And when I came across your work, and yeah, you're like you're a seed goddess. So I'd love to connect and bring you on into the Healing Home so we can talk about what you do, because it's awesome. Yes. So Cozy Crone says, I think it's good to have like 5 basic go-tos, 1, maybe 10 at most. I would agree with you. Yes, entirely. Keeping it simple, right? Because you may have not been around when I said it, but like a lot of times people will just like throw a bunch of shit all at once, and then you don't know what's working. You don't know what did what, like what actually in that whole thing made me feel better. And if you have it, like what Andy is talking about, if you have like a basic list of things that you go to, then it will help you to kind of like remember it next time, and then just know that, yep, these are the things that tend to work with my body the best. And then you can like kind of run through it. And there's no shame in like making lists, or having reminders even tucked away in something like a first aid kit. Or if you keep your if you know you keep certain tinctures around in a certain place, you could even like write a little note and leave it there for yourself. Keep a journal, or keep a like an ailments journal. So, oh man, I remember I wasn't feeling well. I had a stomach thing, and I remember I ate this and that. And then I also remember I was going through this and that. And you could write that down, and then you could like, you know, look back, and, everything else. She says, thank you, but I'm super shy. It's cool. You don't have to come on. But I really, just getting to know you, even just through the internet, I'm like, yeah, that would be really great. But you can decline as well. But yes. So okay, so that is the nourishment versus suppression, and the more of the wise woman tradition way of looking at things, and looking at your body as more of like a temple, which sounds kind of like the hippie kind of thing, but it's true. It's just like your body is sacred, and you want to keep your sacred space clear, and keeping it just, free flowing. And these are just ways to start to look at things a little differently. So here in my notes, I have initiation and leveling up. I already kind of talked about that briefly, but I think that's another opportunity. That's another way to flip the ailment into something that's great, because then you can start looking at it and going, okay, so this is going on. This is going to be something that's going to level me up. It's going to elevate me. It's going to, even if you don't like see it immediately, it might literally be an emotional leveling up, or a mentality leveling up. Like you could, uh, get into some of the more of the nitty-gritty stuff that the ailment is bringing up, and then like on an emotional level, it may have been like some sort of initiation. Illness is kind of like a gateway. I look at it sort of like, it's like you're being given an opportunity to pass through this gateway onto the other side. And the gift of that initiation literally might just be learning the remedy that worked. It might not be this huge profound thing, and that that, oh my god, and then all these things started happening. But I think that just the learning of the right remedies for the right situations is a leveling up, because then next time you're just going to know better for next time. And like the shoulda woulda coulda thing really keeps you stuck in a more of a negative thought loop. And that is one of the things that I've had to work really hard on, and I still slip into it. I think we all do, but like, man, I should have done that, or oh man, if I just would have done that, this would have happened. But the thing that happens with that is that that's a projection, because even if you did the thing that you thought you should have, it may have not produced the result that you're projecting that you thought would have been the result. And so you then get into this loop of just like regret. You just start to like get into this more negative place of regretting that you didn't do that thing. So shoulda, woulda, coulda. Oh man, I said that. I wish I would have said that instead. And it's like, well, yeah, maybe that's what you should have done. But now it's just like, well, but the next time you have that happen, then you'll know better. And that's the whole thing, is like going through these sorts of like not so savory experiences. Um, the best way to look at it is that it's going to help you be better for next time. And that is seriously one of the better things that you can do. I think too, looking at plants as teachers is a really good way to get into a better mindset with this. And then you're looking at your ailment as a teacher as well. So again, it's an opportunity. It's just like literally an opportunity to grow. So one of the things too, I wanted to maybe bring up is the role of the medicine woman. Now, this might sound random, It's like, okay, we're talking about ailments as opportunities, but the role of the medicine woman, what does that mean? I think it's means a lot of things. And I'm like, when it comes to labels and trying to label yourself or like explain to somebody what you do or whatever, labels have always been a weird thing for me. And so I've always struggled as to like, yeah, what do I do, or what am I? Like, what is this? We all sit back and go, who am I, or whatever. And there's all these labels that we can pick. And over the recent year, I've kind of started to realize that I feel like I lean towards more of being a medicine woman. And when I think of a medicine woman, there's all sorts of things that come along with that, because I know that there's more of like a Native American like stance on that like there's native medicine people, but I think that all of us can be medicine people. And I don't think that it has to necessarily have to do with any sort of like racial thing or lineage thing, because I think that our ancestors were medicine people in their own right. And I think, though, that there are people, though, that have more abilities in that mindset. And when I think of a medicine woman or a medicine man, I think of someone that listens to a person's story. And so I think like us looking at it like we can become our own medicine man or woman. Listen to your own story when you're not feeling well. And that's like literally an opportunity to get to know yourself better. Because even though we are ourselves, we can go through times where you feel like you don't really know who you are, or you're figuring it out still, or whatever. And so with the medicine woman thing, I think too that it's more of a holistic way of looking, and it's more about, it incorporates more of the spiritual side of what we're talking about into it, or even more on a physical level, like laying hands on, or Reiki, or, whatever you want to say. There's more of that spiritual bent to it. And I look at the medicine woman or medicine man as somebody who tends like who tends to a hearth. I look at that as the medicine woman's role as well. So it's like you're tending the hearth, you're keeping that fire going. And it doesn't always have to be the physical hearth in the home. It could literally be the internal fire, keeping your own internal fire going. And I heard this great quote the other day. I've been looking into Northern European spiritualism a lot more lately, because it's part of my lineage, and looking at Sadar, which is basically the practice of magical practices of people, of like you could call them the Norse people or the Northern Europeans. And one of the women that I've been listening to brought up this quote, and it is, tradition is keeping sorry, I'll start over. Tradition is the keeping of the fire, not the worship of the ashes. As soon as I heard that, I was like, whoa, that's profound, because it's about keeping that fire going. It's about feeding that fire. And it's not about, when the fire goes out, that you sit there and look at the ashes with, with sadness, or, then you're just like, there's no fire. Where's the fire? Oh man. Well, what happened? And that can be our own internal fire. And so I think that when we look at ourselves like that, like the medicine man or woman for yourself, being your own version of that, you can keep that in your mind or your heart, of like keeping that fire going. It's very important. And sometimes the fire goes down a little bit, and that's okay. And then sometimes it takes a little bit longer to find dry wood to throw back onto the fire. And that's okay too. But sometimes you have an abundance of firewood that's super dry and it's cured and it's ready to go. And it's just like, you're just pumping that fire on there, and the flames are just really roaring and everything's warm and there's heat, and it's beautiful. And so I think that if we kind of look at it like, just stoking our own internal fire, I think that's a really good opportunity to view health and wellness in a really cool, beautiful way. And like looking at that, like that's part of our roles for being here, is to keep your internal fire going so that you can maybe help someone who's having a harder time keeping their fire going, and maybe their fire went out and they're worshiping the ashes. You could be the person that brings them, a fire stick, so that you can show them like, no, you don't have to worship these ashes and long for that fire that was there. You can actually like start it again, and you can recreate that fire, and you can build on it and build on it and build on it. And that is something of a huge opportunity in and of itself, in my opinion. Matching plants with people's needs is something that a medicine woman or medicine person would do, because you're listening to them. You're listening. So if you're dealing with something and it's with yourself, you, like I said, want to tune into yourself, listen to yourself, and then apply a plant that you think is you're connected to, or you think might be helping, or that you're getting a little bit of an intuitive hit to go to. One of the things that is really cool is the practice of Ayurveda, because they look at the different tissue states. Now, I'm not super well versed in them, because it's just not, it hasn't been my line of study, but I do really appreciate the way they look at it, that we have the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha body types and tissue states, which all three have their own different parts. So it's usually for people who run, maybe are like a little bit more cold and dry, and they might be, or there's the other type that's like more oily, more warm. And so I think that that's a really good tradition to tap into. And that in and of itself can really be a huge roadmap for people, and yourself, to know what might work better for you. There might be a plant that lines up with those tissue states that you see in yourself, and you could be like, oh, okay, I'll try that then instead of that, because I have been taking I've been taking A, but it hasn't really been doing much for me. So I'm going to try B, because that actually aligns more with my tissue state. And then you take B and you're like, oh, okay, now I see. So again, another opportunity to just like figure yourself out. And I think that really, at the end of the day, that's like what we're here for, is to figure ourselves out. And that was another thing at Flatoberfest. There was I can't remember his name now. His first name was Dave. I don't remember his last name. But he had a really good presentation, just basically kind of about like mindset and manifestation, and how that all works. And so when we start to look at ourselves more like our own healers, I think that we put ourselves in that role of being like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'm in the mindset of a healer, because I'm going to be my own healer. And that is really, really empowering. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't ask people for help, or ask someone that's experienced or whatever. But the more that you look at it that way, I think like the better off you're going to be, really. Let's see here. Yes. Oh, folk medicine and ancestral traditions, I think, goes along with this too, because a lot of times what we find out is our family and our ancestors had things that were totally um, like family traditional medicines that they use, and typically it's really simple. And if you get an opportunity to talk to your elder, you can ask them these questions. What did your parents do? Hey grandma, what did your mom make you when you didn't feel good? These are the things that, when we're talking about like ancestral healing and the ancestral patterns that we all have with our ancestors, if you can find out what your grandma used to make for your mom or dad when they were ill, there's a pretty good freaking chance that whatever that is going to work for you, because it's like in your lineage, it's in your blood. So that's something to consider. And I think that that is definitely something that is not talked about very often, but it's very important to think about. And it's one of those things that you might not think about it until you took the time to slow down and realize it. And unfortunately, some people don't have the opportunity to speak to their grandparents or even their parents about this kind of stuff. So if that's the case, it literally could be just like you researching your lineage and then finding out what your lineage or the region where your lineage is from, what were common plants or common remedies that were used in those areas, and then incorporating those into your life. So again, another opportunity to get to know yourself better and your family. For better or for worse, some people don't really want to know their family, but I think like that's a block that could be something that could prevent you from progress. To have so much resentment or something for a family member or something, that you just don't take the time to understand, maybe where you came from or what went on, like that could actually prevent you from healing yourself in general. So just these are just things that are literally coming to me. I have notes here, but I didn't really like over prepare, because I wanted to just let things flow. So I'm kind of just like sort of going off the cuff, but these are things that I think about quite a bit. And these are the things that again, my ear ailment really, really, really helped me to realize. And so in hindsight, I am so grateful to have gone through that. So grateful. For as miserable as it was like seriously. Whoa. I mean, I feel like a new person after that. I really do. Like it was a big deal, and I had no idea that it was going to allow me so many opportunities for growth and healing and knowledge, really, honestly. That's like how I feel about it. So yes, I think like that I got a lot of my thoughts out on this, and I'm grateful for you guys listening. And this was really fun. And I know that I'm going to be talking way more about this in the future, and just continue to dig down this mindset or this mentality of ailments as opportunities versus something that is horrible and everything else. But don't get me wrong. It's not that ailments, they aren't fun. I'm not trying to like new age y'all and candy coat being ill or having some kind of chronic ailment or something. Not in the slightest. I'm not trying to do that at all. What I'm just trying to do is to help people to see that it doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world, and it doesn't have to be the doom and gloom. I think it's more about asking the right questions, and that's how life is in general, is like asking the right questions and asking yourself the right questions, and then being honest with yourself, and being able to really not be afraid, I guess, of the answers that might pop up, even though it is kind of scary sometimes when we're dealing with all of this stuff, especially the shadowy parts. There's all sorts of emotions that come around when we deal with this, and it's like, wow, I think that if we can help other people think this way, I think society in general will just be healthier, really. So yeah, it sounds like people are really enjoying it. Thank you, Polymathing. And Kabir, glad you enjoyed it too. Thanks for coming and hanging out, even though you couldn't play Frisbee. Yes, beautiful blooms, seeds, ailments can be a true godsend. I know this from experience. Yes, totally. And Liam, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for all your support. It's really appreciated. And thanks for being here. Yes, Kabir says, I think my rib issue was a reminder to stretch slash do yoga more. Yeah, see, and that's the thing. It could literally be something like that where maybe it didn't take you out of the game, but at least reminded you of the things that really, really help you and make you feel better. And I think like that is what I'm really, really wanted to get to today with that. And also remembering that it's okay to ask for help. So like I said, I'm not trying to make it seem like you should only ask yourself what's wrong or this or that. It's okay to ask for help, you know. I asked for help when I was going through my ear because there were so many times where I was just like, I don't know what else to do. Like I've pulled out my arsenal. I've thrown so many things around. I've tried so many things, you know, and it wasn't just taking things. I was doing things like grounding and bathing and hot showers, cold showers, you know, you name it. I was pretty much trying it. Yeah, it's like the amount of things I learned by doing that was pretty profound. And so yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought. Not sure where I was 100% going with it, but you know, thank you guys for listening to this one. And thank you for everything. I appreciate it. And I hope that this helps you guys. I hope it helped to make you think about something differently. And I hope that it helps you to help someone else. Thank you, Greater Unknown. It was. I really enjoyed talking about this one. It's a good one. So, as usual, I have some slides for you guys. So, I'm going to bring them up. michelleshealinghome.com. If anybody has noticed or gone to the website lately, it's totally redone. We revamped it, we added things, and we started an online store. So it's so much easier for people who want to support us by purchasing products. You can do that on the website now, way easier because you don't have to email me and there's not the email back and forth correspondences, which, if that is preferred, or if you live in Canada or another country, that would be the way to do it because with Squarespace, just the way the shipping was, I decided to not do that through the website. But if you are Canadian or living in another country and you want to purchase products from me, just email me, michelleshealinghome@gmail.com, and we can do it through there. But every other way to contact me is all on the website, so you can check it out. Right now, I currently have my clay and salt all day deodorant, which I am really, really, really pumped about. This is a new take on my old recipe of deodorant that had my old recipe contained baking soda. And for a long time, it worked and I loved it and it was great. And, you know, but in the recent times, people have kind of begun to notice that baking soda is irritating to the skin. It also can kind of throw the pH off a little bit. And so I took the baking soda out of my formula and I added bentonite clay and I also added magnesium oil. So there's magnesium chloride, there's zinc oxide, non nano. I use non nano zinc oxide, bentonite clay, arrowroot powder, and it's in a base of unrefined coconut oil and unrefined shea butter. And I also use pure essential oils in this. I am so pumped on it. It works really well. I've been working on it for a few months and I've been testing it out on myself as I always do. And I took it with us to Vegas. So we were in like 90 plus heat, very warm, wasn't stinky. So it works really great. Mario really likes it too. And it is the same formula or the same form as like the paste that you can apply with your finger. And I really like that, and I think there's something to be said about being able to apply the deodorant with your hands. It's like you're making a stronger connection with your body. You know, I don't think we should be afraid of our bodies or like, "Ew, I have to touch my armpits or something." Everybody's different, but for me, I just find it to be a better experience, and I then you can like really rub it in to make sure it's like in your skin and it's not going to leave residue or whatever. So anyway, I've got that deodorant available. Really nice tooth powder is back in stock and is still available. I also have some St. John's wort tincture and anointing oil sets. I think I only have like one left. And then I also have some fresh herb tinctures. Full Moon Offering newsletter number 37, which was it's the current newsletter. The elderberry and reishi mushroom syrup is all sold out. So until next time on that one. But the next the next offering will be coming out this Saturday on the 28th. So you will be able to find out what's going on with that. All my patrons get the announcement for the full moon offering newsletter one day ahead of time for everybody. And honestly, since my crow episode, my newsletter list has grown quite a bit. So to be a patron gives you that leg up on everything. So it doesn't sell out before you want to get your hands on it. And again, I'm super grateful for that opportunity to be on Crow for a lot of reasons. And I was actually able to meet Jason Lindgren this weekend too. So that was really cool to be able to get a face to the name and the voice. So that was awesome. And so check out that episode if you guys haven't heard already. But up on the screen here, we have Chance, Sarah G, who I also got to meet. Shout out to Sarah G. She's freaking awesome. And it was, God, her vibe is so chill. And I was like, yep, this is awesome. So Sarah G, what's up? Liam was in the chat. Amy Messner, Miri and Hank, Jenny G, also in the chat. What's up, my lady? Erica, Moonlander, Spoons, Mary, Louie. What's up, Louie? He was here too. Diane, Logan was here too. Debbie, Natasha, Mary Beth, Nausicaa, Stephanie, Jennifer, Charolai, Peter, Elise, and James. Shout out to them. They were around too earlier. Amy and Rachel. Thank you all. Appreciate you guys. Patreon.com/thehealinghome if you'd like to become a patron. Next week's show on the Healing Home is Dana of Rotting Jewels. Now, Dana is pretty freaking awesome. We're going to talk about the Process Church of the Final Judgment. And for those of you who know me, you know that I really love talking about Charles Manson and the Process Church and all of the crazy mythos that goes along with that. And we spent a chunk of our summer talking about that. Now, Dana, she has done some really deep digging into the Process Church and has made some really, really, really awesome connections with it. And I found her through the Occult Rejects, actually, because Mario and I were on the Occult Rejects in September to talk about the process. And then she was on to talk about the process on their show. And I was like, whoa, this chick rocks. She has been going through like FBI documents and court documents and has made some really good connections. So she is Rotting Jewels on YouTube. So you can check her out before our interview if you want to get to know her a little better. But she's really intelligent and she's awesome and she's put together a lot of stuff. So on Halloween, Halloween has always been like my favorite holiday or whatever. Even though I don't know, I don't really know if I look at it like a holiday. It's like the time of year. So, and I thought it would be a very appropriate to talk about something like the Process Church of the Final Judgment on Halloween. So Dana and I are going to throw down on that next week. Last Thursday is coming up this week. Mario and I are gonna do another taking calls and hanging out session. We can also then get into more of our thoughts on Flatoberfest there and what's going on, and then bring some awesome people into the stream if they want to throw down and talk with us on last Thursday. So that'll be this Thursday at 6 p.m. here on the Healing Home. SymbolicStudies.com for all things Mario. He is working on perhaps working on a Libra presentation. Even though we're in Scorpio now, he has some like final thoughts on Libra that he might be bringing to everybody. So keep an eye out for that. SymbolicStudies.com is where to find him, where to schedule tarot readings, study sessions, his elemental study packets, and his prints. All of his original art is there at SymbolicStudies.com. And with all that said, thank you all again for being here. And I really appreciate it. Until next week, I hope you guys are feeling well. And if you're not feeling well, maybe take a little bit of time to think about some of the stuff we talked about tonight with looking at it as an opportunity for whatever that might be, for growth, for more self-realization, for self-expansion, but mostly just a way to level up and gain more knowledge for yourself so that you can help yourself heal in a better, more deeper, holistic way, and then do that for the same for other people. So until next time, you all. Oh, and also what I'm going to do before I sign off, I'm going to put it up in the chat again, the Baldersons GoFundMe for them losing their truck. They didn't lose it; it was stolen. It was straight up stolen. And we were sitting there when they had the realization that had been stolen, and it was just like, oh, whoa, what, So anyway, that's up on the screen or in the chat. If you want to, it's up on the screen now. But Brian Staveley of Dose of Reality started that GoFundMe, and they've actually done really well so far. The goal was 3,000, and they are now at 2,360. So the people rallied to help the Baldersons, and that's really cool to see because they're going to need some help with that, whether that be just traveling back to Vegas, hopefully finding the truck, or if they're going to have to buy a new one. I'm not sure, but that's in the chat if you guys are interested in helping support them. Yes. All right. Until next time, y'all, take care. We'll see you soon.